Fragments of Justice, a detective mystery by Nico Nealon. Chapter 1. Detective Marcus Stone's eyes fluttered open to sterile white walls and the antiseptic smell of a hospital room. His head throbbed with the intensity of a jackhammer, each pulse sending waves of pain through his skull. He tried to lift his hand, only to find it tethered to an IV drip. "Ah, you're awake." A nurse appeared beside him, checking monitors with practiced efficiency. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got hit by a truck," Marcus rasped, his throat raw. "What happened?" The nurse's expression shifted, something between pity and professional concern. "You were found unconscious in an alley 3 days ago. Head trauma. The doctors say you should recover, but—" She paused. "You might experience some memory issues." Marcus frowned, trying to grasp the slippery threads of his recent past. Memory issues? He could remember his name, his job as a detective, his badge number. But everything else felt like trying to hold water in his hands. "I need to call my partner," he said, struggling to sit up. "That's just it," the nurse said gently. "You kept muttering about a case, something about stolen diamonds and a thief you had to catch. The police chief has been waiting to speak with you." Chief Harrison entered the room like a storm cloud, his weathered face bearing the weight of bad news. He pulled a chair beside Marcus's bed, studying him with eyes that had seen too much. "Marcus, I need to know what you remember about the Devereaux case." The name hit Marcus like a physical blow. Devereaux, diamonds, a theft that had rocked the city's elite, but the details remained frustratingly out of reach, like words on the tip of his tongue. I I know the name," Marcus admitted. "Stolen diamonds, right? High society theft." Harrison leaned forward. "3 days ago, you told me you were close to making an arrest. You said you knew who the thief was, but you needed more evidence. Then you disappeared. We found you in that alley with a concussion and no wallet, no badge, no phone. Nothing." Marcus's mind raced, searching for fragments. Nothing concrete emerged, just shadows and whispers. "I don't remember what I discovered. I don't even remember going to that alley." "That's not the worst part," Harrison continued. "The Devereaux diamonds? They were recovered yesterday. Someone mailed them to the station with an anonymous note saying they were returning what was stolen. But here's the thing. The insurance company already paid out the claim. If those diamonds are fake, someone's committing fraud. If they're real, we've got bigger problems." Against medical advice, Marcus checked himself out of the hospital the next morning. His head still ached, but frustration proved stronger than pain. He needed answers, and they wouldn't come to him lying in a hospital bed. Chapter 2. His apartment felt foreign, yet familiar. He moved through the rooms like a ghost, touching objects that should hold meaning but didn't. In his home office, case files covered his desk, his handwriting on notes he didn't remember writing. The Devereaux file lay open, photographs of crime scene evidence scattered across the surface. A broken safe, a ransacked bedroom, and something that made his detective instincts stir. The theft had been too clean, too professional. No fingerprints, no forced entry, except the obvious damage to the safe. It felt staged. His phone buzzed with a number he didn't recognize. "Stone. Detective, this is Catherine Devereaux." The voice was cultured, controlled, but he caught the tremor beneath. "I heard you were injured. I need to speak with you, privately." They arranged to meet at a small cafe across town. As Marcus dressed, he caught his reflection in the mirror, bandage wrapping his head like a war wound, eyes that held secrets he couldn't unlock. Somewhere in his damaged memory lay the identity of a thief and the solution to a case that was already growing cold. Catherine Devereaux sat at the corner table like a woman holding herself together with sheer willpower. Her designer suit couldn't hide the exhaustion in her posture, the way her hands trembled slightly as she stirred her coffee. "They told me you might not remember," she said without preamble. "But I need to know. Did you find him? Did you find the person who stole my mother's diamonds?" Marcus studied her face, searching for tells, for recognition, for anything that might trigger his lost memories. "Mrs. Devereaux, I wish I could tell you. The last 3 days are a complete blank. But I'm going to solve this case, with or without my memory." She reached into her purse and pulled out a photograph. "This is my son, David. He's been missing since the theft. The police think he ran because of gambling debts, but—" Her voice broke. "I think he was involved in the robbery." Marcus took the photo, studying the young man's face. Something stirred, not memory exactly, but recognition of a pattern. "Why do you think that?" "Because David knew the security code. He knew when we'd be out of town. And because—" She hesitated. "Because he called me the day after you were attacked. He said he was in trouble, that people were after him." Then the line went dead. Back in his apartment, Marcus spread the case materials across his living room floor. Without his memories, he had to rely on pure detective work, examining evidence without preconceptions, following logical paths rather than remembered ones. The crime scene photos told a story, but not the one he'd apparently been investigating. The safe had been cracked professionally, but the surrounding damage seemed excessive, almost theatrical. Jewelry boxes had been emptied, but only the diamonds were valuable enough to warrant such attention. His phone rang. Unknown caller. "Detective Stone, I heard you've been having memory problems." The voice was male, distorted by some electronic device. "Pity. You were so close to the truth. Close enough that someone tried to permanently silence you." "Who is this?" Marcus demanded, but the caller continued as if he hadn't spoken. "The diamonds were never really stolen, detective. They were relocated. Insurance fraud, but not by who you think. Check the insurance policy. Check who benefits. And be careful who you trust. Some memories are better left buried, but I suspect you'll dig anyway. You always were persistent." The line went dead. Marcus stared at his phone, mind racing. The caller had known about his amnesia, had known about the case. More importantly, he'd suggested the entire theft was an inside job for insurance money. The insurance policy was a masterpiece of legalese, but Marcus's detective eye caught the crucial details. The diamonds were insured for $5 million, twice their appraised value. The beneficiary wasn't Catherine Devereaux, but her husband's business partner, someone named Victor Kowalski. A quick search revealed Kowalski had been in financial trouble, his company bleeding money for months. The insurance payout would save his business, and then some. But that didn't explain David Devereaux's disappearance or Marcus's attack in the alley. Chapter 3. His partner, Detective Rivera, had been trying to reach him since his release from the hospital. She showed up at his door with coffee and concern etched on her face. "You look like hell," she said, handing him the coffee. "Harrison told me about the memory loss. How much do you remember?" "Bits and pieces. Nothing useful." He filled her in on the anonymous call and the insurance angle. "Rivera, I need you to be straight with me. What was I working on before the attack?" She hesitated. "You were acting strange the last few days. Secretive. You said you had a theory, but you needed to check something out first. You wouldn't tell me what it was. Then you disappeared." Rivera helped him reconstruct his last known movements. Security footage showed him leaving the station 3 nights ago, apparently following someone. His credit card had been used at a bar in the warehouse district, a place known for attracting a criminal element. The bartender remembered him. "Yeah, he was here asking about Victor Kowalski. Wanted to know if he'd been around, who he was meeting with. I told him Kowalski comes in sometimes, meets with this young guy, tall, good-looking, always looks nervous. David Devereaux." Marcus had been following a connection between the stepson and the business partner. But which one was the thief? Or were they working together? The pieces were coming together, but Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something crucial. His notes from before the attack mentioned a secondary location and the real prize. But the Devereaux mansion had been thoroughly searched. What else could have been stolen? Then he found it, a receipt in his own handwriting for a storage unit rental, dated the day before his attack. He'd apparently rented a unit under a false name, paying cash. Whatever he'd discovered, he'd hidden it there. The storage facility was on the outskirts of town, surrounded by chain-link fence in desperation. Marcus found the unit, B247, and used the combination he'd written in his notes. The door rolled up with a metallic groan that echoed through the corridor. Inside, evidence covered a makeshift table, photographs, financial records, and a small velvet bag that made Marcus's pulse quicken. He opened it carefully, diamonds spilling into his palm like captured starlight. But these weren't the Devereaux diamonds. Those had been returned. These were different, smaller, but clearly valuable. His phone buzzed. Another unknown number. "You found my insurance policy," the distorted voice returned. "Clever detective, but you're still not seeing the whole picture. The Devereaux theft was just the beginning. David discovered something he shouldn't have. Victor Kowalski isn't just an insurance fraudster. He's been running a diamond laundering operation for years, stealing from the rich, replacing real stones with excellent fakes, selling the originals to finance other ventures." "Why are you telling me this?" Marcus asked. "Because you're going to need help. Kowalski knows you are getting close. That's why he had you attacked. But he's not working alone. Someone in your own department is helping him stay ahead of the investigation." The corruption angle changed everything. Marcus had been investigating dirty cops before his attack. He found notes about unusual access to evidence, tip-offs that came too late, surveillance that mysteriously failed. Someone inside the department was feeding Kowalski information. But who? Harrison had been pushing him to solve the case. Rivera had been his partner for 3 years, but she'd been acting strangely since his return. Then there was the evidence clerk who'd processed the Devereaux scene, the tech who'd analyzed the security footage. Marcus needed to move carefully. He photographed everything in the storage unit, then returned the diamonds to their hiding place. If he was being watched, he couldn't let them know how much he'd recovered. His next stop was David Devereaux's last known address, a cramped studio apartment that smelled of fear and fast food. The place had been tossed, drawers emptied, mattress slashed, but whoever searched it had been rushed. Behind a loose baseboard, Marcus found a flash drive and a note in David's handwriting. "If you're reading this, I'm probably dead. Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't know what they were planning until it was too late. Kowalski killed Mrs. Chen when she discovered the substitution. I have proof. The real diamonds are in the safety deposit box at First National. Key is taped under the mailbox. Don't trust the police. One of them is working with Kowalski." Chapter 4. Mrs. Chen. The name clicked into place like a missing puzzle piece. David's gambling debts hadn't been to loan sharks. They'd been to Kowalski, who'd used them to force David into helping with the insurance fraud. But David had discovered Kowalski's real operation, replacing expensive jewelry with fakes, then laundering the real stones through international connections. Mrs. Chen had been the Devereaux's housekeeper for 20 years. She'd noticed the substitution during the staged robbery, confronted Kowalski, and paid with her life. David had witnessed it and gone into hiding, planning to expose everything. Marcus found the safety deposit box key exactly where David said. Inside were photographs of Mrs. Chen's body, financial records showing Kowalski's laundering operation, and most damning, video footage of Kowalski meeting with his police department contact. The figure in the video was unmistakable. Detective Harrison, taking an envelope and providing case information. The chief himself was dirty, which explained how Kowalski had stayed ahead of the investigation, how Marcus's attack had been covered up as a random mugging. But David had made one crucial mistake. He'd trusted the wrong person with his evidence. The flash drive was empty, wiped clean. Someone had gotten to it before Marcus. Marcus's hands trembled as he processed the implications. Harrison wasn't just obstructing justice. He was an active participant in Kowalski's crimes. The attack in the alley hadn't been random. It had been a warning delivered by the chief himself, using Marcus's investigation to set up the ambush. But why leave Marcus alive? The answer sent ice through his veins. Harrison needed him to finish the case, to provide a convenient scapegoat when the truth came out. A detective with memory loss would be easy to manipulate, easy to blame when evidence disappeared or witnesses changed their stories. Marcus needed allies he could trust, but his amnesia made that impossible. He couldn't remember who might be clean, who might help. Rivera had been his partner, but she'd also been close to Harrison. Catherine Devereaux had seemed genuine, but what if she was part of it too? He decided to trust his instincts rather than his damaged memory. The evidence was real, the conspiracy was real, and he had enough to bring down Kowalski and Harrison both, if he could stay alive long enough to present it to someone who mattered. His phone rang. Harrison's number. "Stone, I need you back at the station. We've got a break in the Devereaux case." Marcus walked into the station like a man entering a lion's den. Every familiar face now carried the shadow of suspicion. Rivera waved him over to her desk, concern evident in her features. "Harrison's been acting weird," she whispered. "He's been asking about you, wanting to know what you remember, and he had me pull all the Devereaux evidence for review. Rivera, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Can I trust you?" She looked hurt. "Marcus, we've been partners for 3 years. You saved my life during the Morrison bust. I'd trust you with mine." He made a decision that could either save him or get him killed. "Meet me in the evidence garage in 10 minutes. Bring your personal weapon and your recorder. And don't tell anyone where you're going." The evidence garage was deserted, rows of impounded vehicles creating a maze of shadows. Marcus laid out everything: David's note, the photographs, the video of Harrison taking bribes. Rivera's face went pale as she processed the scope of the corruption. "Harrison's been dirty for months," she breathed. "That's why our cases kept falling apart. But Marcus, if we go after him, we need ironclad evidence. He's too connected, too careful. That's why we're not going after him directly. We're going to let him hang himself." The plan was simple but dangerous. Marcus would feed Harrison just enough information to make him nervous, force him to make mistakes. Rivera would document everything, building a case that couldn't be dismissed as the ramblings of a detective with head trauma. They started with the diamonds. Marcus called Harrison from a burner phone, using a voice distorter similar to the one his mysterious informant had used. "The real diamonds are still missing," he said. "The ones you returned are fakes. I have proof." Harrison's reaction was immediate and telling. "Who is this? What do you want?" "Justice for Mrs. Chen and for Detective Stone, who got too close to the truth." Marcus hung up before Harrison could trace the call. Within minutes, his regular phone rang. Harrison, sounding shaken, but trying to appear in control. "Stone, where are you? We need to talk. I've been thinking about your attack. What if it wasn't random? What if someone targeted you because of the case?" Marcus played along, agreeing to meet Harrison at a neutral location. But he and Rivera were already moving to phase 2 of their plan, forcing Kowalski to make contact with his police contact while they recorded everything. The meeting place was a park bench overlooking the river. Neutral ground with multiple escape routes. Harrison arrived looking like he hadn't slept, his usual commanding presence diminished by paranoia. "Marcus, I'm glad you called. I've been thinking about what you said, about the attack not being random. What if David Devereaux didn't run? What if someone silenced him?" The irony wasn't lost on Marcus. Harrison was investigating a murder he'd helped commit, but Marcus needed to keep him talking, needed to record his admissions. "I've been having flashes of memory," Marcus lied. "I remember following someone that night, someone I trusted, and I remember discovering something about the diamonds. They weren't stolen, were they? They were switched." Harrison's face went carefully blank. "That's a serious accusation. Do you have evidence?" "Not yet, but I'm getting close. Close enough that someone tried to kill me. Close enough that they might try again." The threat hung between them like a loaded gun. Harrison's hand moved unconsciously toward his weapon, then stopped. He was calculating odds, deciding whether Marcus was too dangerous to leave alive. "Maybe you should take some more time off," Harrison suggested, "until your memory returns. This case has already cost you too much." But Marcus wasn't ready to back down. "I found David's hiding place. He left evidence. Photographs, financial records, names. Someone's been running a diamond laundering operation for years, using insurance fraud to cover the thefts. And someone in our department has been helping them." Harrison stood abruptly. "You're not thinking clearly. Head trauma can cause paranoia, false memories. Maybe we should get you checked out again. Maybe we should get the FBI involved. Let them sort out what's real and what's paranoia." The mention of federal authorities hit Harrison like a physical blow. His composure cracked just enough to reveal the desperation beneath. "That's not necessary. We can handle this internally. Why don't you give me whatever evidence you think you have? I'll make sure it gets to the right people." Marcus smiled coldly. I think I'll hold on to it for now, but I'll tell you what. I remember who attacked me. I remember their face, their voice, everything. And when I remember their name, they're going down for attempted murder, conspiracy, and whatever else I can make stick. He walked away, leaving Harrison standing alone by the river, already reaching for his phone to make a very important call. The call came exactly as Marcus expected. Kowalski wanted to meet to discuss a business proposition that could make Marcus's problems disappear. The location was one of Kowalski's legitimate businesses, a jewelry store that served as a front for his laundering operation. Marcus arrived wired for sound, Rivera positioned nearby with backup ready to move. The store was empty except for Kowalski himself, a distinguished-looking man in his 50s who radiated calm menace. Detective Stone, I've heard you've been having memory problems. Such a shame when our past slips away from us. I remember enough. I remember David Devereaux, Mrs. Chen, and a diamond substitution racket that's been running for years. Kowalski examined a display of watches, not looking at Marcus. Memory is such a fragile thing. Sometimes it returns completely. Sometimes it never comes back at all. Sometimes, he set down the watch. People with memory problems have accidents, fatal ones. Is that a threat? It's a reality. You're investigating things that don't concern you, accusing people who could destroy you with a phone call. But I'm a reasonable man. Walk away from the Devereaux case, take a nice long disability leave, and everyone wins. Marcus leaned forward. And if I don't? Then you'll discover that some memories are better left buried, along with the people who try to dig them up. Kowalski's threats were meant to intimidate, but they had the opposite effect. Marcus had enough evidence recorded to bury both Kowalski and Harrison, but he needed one more piece, the connection between them that would prove conspiracy. He found it in an unlikely place. Catherine Devereaux's financial records. Rivera had pulled them as part of their investigation, discovering that Catherine had been paying Kowalski consulting fees for months, payments that coincided with her husband's business difficulties. Catherine wasn't a victim. She was a co-conspirator. The theft had been her idea, using Kowalski's criminal connections to stage the robbery and collect the insurance money. David had discovered the truth and threatened to expose them, leading to his murder and Mrs. Chen's death when she stumbled onto the conspiracy. Marcus arranged one final meeting, this time with all the players, Harrison, Kowalski, and Catherine, in the same room. He told them he had new evidence that would break the case wide open, evidence that implicated all of them. They arrived separately, but their nervous energy was identical. Harrison kept his hand near his weapon. Kowalski's calm mask was cracking, and Catherine looked like she hadn't slept in days. "Thank you for coming," Marcus began, setting a briefcase on the table. "I wanted you all to hear this together. I've recovered my memory completely." The lie hit them like a physical blow. They exchanged glances, each calculating their exposure, their options, their escape routes. "I remember everything," Marcus continued. "The attack, the conspiracy, the murders. David Devereaux was going to expose you all. He found out that Catherine planned the theft with Kowalski, that Harrison was providing police protection, that Mrs. Chen was killed to keep her quiet." "That's absurd," Catherine managed, but her voice shook. "My son was troubled. He ran away because of gambling debts." Did he? Or did he run because he discovered his mother was planning insurance fraud with a known criminal? Did Mrs. Chen die because she caught you switching the diamonds? Did Harrison arrange my attack because I was getting too close to the truth? Harrison stood abruptly. "This meeting is over. You're making accusations without evidence, Detective. I think your head injury has affected your judgment." "Sit down," Marcus commanded, his voice carrying the authority of a man with nothing left to lose. "You want evidence? I have photographs, financial records, witness statements, and video footage of all of you together. But most importantly, I have David's final message, recorded before you killed him." Kowalski reached into his jacket, but Rivera was already moving, weapon drawn, backup flooding through the doors. The conspiracy had been documented, recorded, and witnessed. There was no escape, no deals, no way to make this disappear. The arrests were swift and professional. Harrison's face crumpled as his fellow officers disarmed him, the weight of his betrayal finally breaking through his practiced facade. Kowalski maintained his composure, but his eyes showed the calculation of a man already planning his defense. Catherine Devereaux wept, not for her crimes but for her exposure. David was going to ruin everything, she sobbed. He didn't understand. The insurance money would have saved us all. Marcus felt no satisfaction, only exhaustion. The case that had nearly killed him was solved, but the cost had been enormous. David Devereaux and Mrs. Chen were still dead, their murders solved but not undone. A police chief's career and reputation lay in ruins. A family was destroyed by greed and betrayal. As they led the conspirators away, Marcus noticed a figure watching from across the street. A man in a dark coat who raised his hand in a subtle salute. The anonymous caller who'd guided him when his memory failed, who'd provided crucial information without revealing his identity. Marcus crossed the street, but the man was already gone, disappeared into the city's anonymous flow. His memory had returned completely now, every detail of the investigation clear and sharp. But some mysteries, he realized, were meant to remain unsolved. The diamonds were returned to their rightful owners, the insurance fraud was exposed, and the laundering operation dismantled. Justice had been served, but Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he'd only scratched the surface of something much larger. Chapter 5. 3 months later, Marcus sat in his office reviewing a new case file. His head injury had healed completely, leaving only a thin scar and occasional headaches. His memory was intact, perhaps even enhanced by the experience of losing and regaining it. Rivera knocked and entered, dropping a file on his desk. Cold case from 2019. Diamond theft, similar MO to the Devereaux job. Think it's connected to Kowalski's operation? Marcus opened the file, scanning the details. Different players, different circumstances, but the same pattern. Staged theft, insurance fraud, and a housekeeper who died under mysterious circumstances. The case had been investigated by Harrison's predecessor, closed due to lack of evidence. Set up a meeting with the original detective, Marcus said, and pull everything we have on diamond thefts from the last 5 years. If Kowalski was part of something bigger, I want to know how big. As Rivera left, Marcus gazed out his window at the city he'd sworn to protect. His amnesia had been a curse that became a blessing, forcing him to see patterns he'd missed before, to question assumptions his experience had made him blind to. The detective who'd lost his memory had found something more valuable, a fresh perspective on the thin line between justice and corruption, between truth and the comfortable lies people told themselves. There would always be more cases, more mysteries, more shadows hiding in plain sight. But Marcus Stone would be ready. He remembered everything now, and he would never forget again. The end. Please like and subscribe to hear more of our upcoming novels.